Hey guys, welcome back. The last several videos that we put out on this channel, as well as the Whitetail Partners YouTube channel that I put together videos for, have all been related to chainsaw work within your timber, because that's what we're doing right now. It's a great time during the dormant season to get out there and start cutting trees, whether that's for bedding areas, creating deer trails through the property, screening off different areas of your property, or taking trees down to establish new food plots on your property. And this video is going to be related to that. We're going to be talking about cutting trees down as well, but I want to take a little bit of a different approach and talk about how before you even start cutting those trees down to establish a food plot or bedding area, whatever project you're working on, you should first be identifying trees that you want to be saving on your property. I'm sure you've heard this before and it's common sense, but I'm going to say it anyways. Once you cut a tree down, you cannot put that tree back. And for the most part, when you cut trees down, you're going to be having a positive impact on that area of the property. You're letting more light into that area. You're going to have more new growth, which is going to provide more food and more cover for the wildlife. But there are going to be instances where we want to save either individual trees or groups of trees on our property. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video, just different examples, different scenarios of where we might want to save a specific tree or maybe a group of trees. And while there are more examples, in this video, we're going to be talking about 4 scenarios where you're going to want to save a tree as opposed to cutting it down. And the first example of a tree that you do not want to cut down on your property is the one that you need to use for a stand location. Whether you're using it for a bow stand, you're prepping it for a saddle, or you're going to attach a ladder stand to it, you still need a tree to hunt from. If you take a lot of trees down within your woodlot to create either a bedding area or a new food plot, you're going to have to take a lot of trees down to do either one of those to get enough sunlight in there for either the bedding area to establish with that new growth or for that food plot to grow. But you still need to save a few trees around the perimeter for future stand locations. When you're doing the work, when you're taking these trees down to install different habitat improvements, you just don't want to get carried away with that chainsaw and take down trees that would have been excellent stand locations. And this is where having a habitat plan for your property is very important, whether you're drawing that up yourself or you're having somebody put one together for you. If you have an area on your property picked out for a new improvement, whether that's a bedding pocket or a new food plot, one of the first things that you need to do is figure out how are you going to hunt this area, which includes figuring out which trees could be potential stand locations. That way they don't end up on the ground as you start taking trees down to install the improvement. The next example that I want to talk about where we want to be saving trees on our property as opposed to cutting them down is closely related to that first one. And that's just making sure that you're not cutting down too many trees behind your stand location to make sure that you're not skylit. Sometimes, depending on the scenario, we do like to cut trees down behind our stand location just to make sure that deer have a harder time getting downwind of us. And sometimes what this can do is it can push deer in front of our stand. However, we want to make sure that when we're doing this, we're not taking too many trees down behind us. We're leaving enough cover back there so that we're not skylit. You want to try to make sure that your silhouette remains hidden or broken up by the cover behind your tree stand. If you take down too many trees behind your tree stand, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and those deer are going to be able to pick you off from a long ways away. So let's keep that in mind, especially for those of you guys that are taking trees down behind your stand location, whether that's to reduce the risk that deer get behind you or if you're trying to push deer in front of your stand location. You just want to make sure that you're leaving enough cover, enough trees behind your stand so that your silhouette remains hidden. The next scenario where we want to be saving trees on our property as opposed to cutting them down would be if you have great production trees on your property. And what I mean by that is if you have great soft mass trees or hard mass trees on your property. Now, I'm not saying that you need to save every single oak tree on your property. Everyone's scenario with this one is going to be a little bit different. But if you only have a few red oaks on the property or a few white oaks on the property, then those are trees that I would likely save and not cut down because we still want to take advantage of the pull, the attraction that these trees have on the years where they have a good mass crop. But like I said, everyone's scenario with this one is going to be a little bit different. If you have a property where you have a lot of a particular type of mass crop, in this one we have a lot of red oak. Not a whole lot of white oak, but we have a lot of red oak. It is perfectly okay to cut down those oak trees. Your property will be offering a lot more to the local wildlife with those trees on the ground. You'll have more food, you'll have more cover from all that new growth just from the sunlight that's now hitting the forest floor. So don't take this as I'm saying that you can't cut oak trees down, far from it. However, if you only have a few species on your property, if you only have a few white oaks or a few reds, or maybe you have a few apple trees on your property, I would probably not cut those trees down because you still want to have the draw, the attraction from those trees. And I just mentioned apple trees or softmast, and this is where everyone's scenario is a little bit different. I would not be cutting down any apple trees on my property, again, because I don't have very many. However, if I owned an apple orchard and I was trying to carve a habitat plan through the existing apple orchard, then I would be taking down apple trees on my property. Very similar to how I take down a lot of red oak on this property. So it is still okay to cut down mass trees on your property, but just try to identify the ones that you don't have very many of and then save those trees. And the final scenario that I want to talk about in today's video, where we want to be saving trees on our property as opposed to cutting them down, has nothing to do with hunting at all. And that's just saving trees that you find enjoyment in from a personal side or your non-hunting life. And that could be really anything. So if you see a tree that would make a good tree fort, maybe with your kids or your grandkids, save those trees. For us, we've been getting into making maple syrup. So any hard maples or sugar maples on our property, especially the ones closer to the house, I tend to save those trees. Now we do have kind of a lot of sugars on our property, so the trees that are back by the bedding area, those hard maples come down. But anything closer to the house where you don't have to carry those buckets very far, I tend to save those trees because our family really enjoys making maple syrup. Our kids have so much fun with it. They love tapping the trees, hanging the buckets, collecting the sap, and Dad, he gets to spend hours evaporating the sap, turning it into maple syrup. And obviously this isn't something that's hunting related, but it's an activity that our family really enjoys doing. It teaches our kids a lot about the outdoors, where natural maple syrup comes from. And that would not be possible if I went and cut down all the hard maple on my property. So you do have to make sure that before you go nuts with the chainsaw, creating bedding areas, creating food plots, that you are identifying trees on your property that you want to save. But I think that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. A little bit of a different take on habitat improvements, and instead of taking trees down, a few reasons why you might want to save a few of them. If you guys do have any questions, please drop those in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.